especially in the last decade, you are in a position that you can start, whereas until now, everyone was doing, as I said, that's how I began our classes. X, Y, X, Y. Y is not important, everything is where the X is, where the explanation is, where the theory is, where the model is. Do you remember? That's what I said all along. And all the analysis and intricacies within this explanation model, etc. Not so much. I thought about it yesterday. Because of the way the world has changed, you can start looking into changing the understanding of what the dependent variable is. Think about it like that. Let's look at it discipline by discipline. In terms of psychology, even from the perspective of psychology, of mental welfare, as I said, depression all over the world, anxieties, OCDs, the numbers are staggering. And the question is, are we going to stick to these models, which is, as we said, or because something so substantial has changed in the landscape of what we are dealing with, you can start looking into new novel explanations. And if you look at political science, even things like, you know, the field was saturated about political participation. But these days, there's only this much you can do with the traditional conservative sort of analytical models. Because, first of all, democracies are not what they were. So the concept of political participation, if you are a political scientist and you study political science, that's how you start looking into things. Go into well-established concepts, well-established dependent variables, and start think of them in the context of the changing world that we live in. You cannot talk about political participation these days in the same way that you talked about it. First of all, think about political apathy, political cynicism, political mistrust. These are all psychological concepts, again, predictors of political participation. And also, what is political participation? I mean, democracy was supposed to be the rule of the people, right? Greek, polis. Then we had representative democracy. So we are voting for governments and they make decisions. So it's not direct democracy. So where's the democracy element? It's political participation. And political participation is a vehicle, is an instrument to influence, it's a citizen luxury, to influence the process of decision making of those who've been elected. In that sense, when you have a referendum, what does a referendum do?
Tries to change something that exists.
How? Yeah, but what happens? Who makes the decision?
People.
No, in referendum, the people. Referendum is back to direct democracy. Referendum is back to the direct democracy. Now, all you have to do is look into the mayhem of Brexit. And actually, the biggest question you need to, and I'm not saying good or bad, again, it's not the issue, but the biggest question you need to ask yourself is, everything here, all these dependent variables are so complex. There's an issue of like elitist democracy. Like, you really need, you need to be a postgraduate in business and finance to understand a lot of the issues that the political system are dealing with. And from your point of view, from the management point of view, from the business, etc. The things that you're talking about businesses, what you talked about 10 years ago, can you talk about it the same way now? What happened to the high street? Something is happening. So what I'm saying is that there is some sort of, or at least I kept saying throughout the week, that's not important, not important. Said, it's there, you change it all the time, put there whatever you want, this is your system, whichever system it is. I know there are theories of management, there are theories of negotiation and conflict resolution, you name it, whatever it is. This, we have billions of books and articles all the time. That's not the issue. But you live in a world now where all this is saturated, but life, the world you live in, is going through such major transformation, well, has gone through such major transformation in the last 2 decades from when these universities and doctorates, etc., were investigating all these issues, that actually a lot of innovation should start looking into this. So for example, even if next week you're going to study, you will study models about this. Ask yourself, and again, I'm not an expert in that, but this irrationality that you are going to look into, is it becoming a bit obsolete or less efficient in explaining dependent variables, whichever ones they are, decisions making? Because decision making of the business world 10 years ago, it's not what it is today. Because the context, the landscape is different. So a lot of innovation, a lot of originality can come into actually trying to think. You're not coming up with new concepts. But how did we start? We said the world is full of circles. Each one of them is a concept. We need to understand. I said all along the most important thing is why, and explanation and theory. But how do we begin? By some sort of clarity about what the dependent variable is. What is depression? What is decision making in a business, etc. All I'm saying, pay attention to that, because you have a great opportunity to look into well-established concepts as dependent variable and well-established theories and model and explanation, but you can shed new light on them. If you're a political scientist, you can shed new light on political participation, on how democracy works. If you're a psychologist, you can shed new light into understanding what depression is. Because I tell you what, if 80% of the world is being prescribed antidepressants at one stage or another, that's not the depression psychologists were talking about all these years. That's something else. Now what does it mean that's something else? Concept. We began by what is it that I'm interested in? What is it that I want to explain? What is it that I want to understand? So I think in a way what I was doing from one class session to the next, I was telling you you're going in that way, and I'm telling you now, going the other way as well. And any ideas about things that you think that actually, Ravi, you have a bit, you are not an undergraduate.
No.
You must have a bit of a wider perspective about the things that you try to understand. In the context of, I mean, would you say even things like the stock market? If you want to explain something, anything, would you say that you use apply or consider exactly the same way current situation compared with 10 years ago, compared with 20 years ago?
I think it depends what you're studying, right? So for example, if I'm studying investment behavior of firms, you know, I do look at investment behavior of firms even, you know, in the 70s or the 60s where they didn't have internet. So in some things have changed in the last, you know, 30 years, but some others might have not changed at all. I think political science have changed quite a lot, and I think there are people studying now, you know, political science, scientific behavior, and how what social media means for preserving power and things like that. But
no, so investment. Take that. The landscape of investment, not because of the internet, but because of globalization and interconnectedness, does it not change the light of the models or theories or explanations of investment?
it definitely does change some, but I'm having a hard time immediately seeing differences in principles. For example, like I invest X in order to get X plus R in the future. I think those principles have not changed, but the landscape, of course, has changed. So,
but the landscape affects the principle, because if the principle for investment, for example, is X, in a world in which every movement you make is dependent on someone else making a pips there, then the principle is affected. Wouldn't you say so?
no, I probably wouldn't. I probably would say that the principle might still